She got laughed at the moment she stepped onto the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu mats. They called her grappling grandma, forced her into a moldy loner gi, threw her into the center of the mat like she was the evening's clown act. Coach Marcus mocked her in front of the entire class, betting she'd tap out to the blue belt in under 5 seconds. No one in that gym had a clue that the plain woman they thought was a joke was about to put the champion to sleep in 14 seconds and drop her IBJJF black belt on the mats like a slap across their smug faces. The Austin, Texas Jiu-Jitsu Academy was a temple of sweat and ego, its walls lined with trophies and banners proclaiming its dominance in the sport. The air was thick with the scent of rubber mats and ambition, every student sizing up newcomers with a predator's gaze. Clara Wynn walked in a quiet figure in a faded t-shirt, old leggings and worn-out sneakers, her no-nonsense bun and plain face marking her as an outsider in a room of sculpted physiques and branded GIs. She carried a tattered gym bag, her movements deliberate, her eyes scanning the dojo, not with nervousness, but with the cold precision of a sniper lining up a shot. The students clad in pristine uniforms whispered as she signed the waiver, their smirks a silent verdict she didn't belong. During a warm-up drill, a clique of advanced students formed a circle around Clara, their laughter a barbed wire fence as they tossed a grappling dummy at her feet. A lanky brown belt, his gi patched with sponsor logos, stepped forward, his voice dripping with condescension. "Pick it up, Grandma. Maybe if you practice with this, you'll stop embarrassing yourself on the real mat," he sneered, kicking the dummy closer. "I mean, look at those sneakers. Did you dig them out of a landfill? This is a champion's dojo, not a soup kitchen for wannabe fighters. You're wasting our time just breathing our air." The circle tightened their chuckles, a chorus of cruelty as Clara bent to retrieve the dummy, her faded t-shirt clinging to her frame. The students recorded the moment, their phones flashing, eager to post grappling grandma's latest failure. Clara's hands closed around the dummy, her face a mask of stone, but the weight of their scorn pressed harder, each word a calculated blow to her dignity, designed to make the audience's blood boil with rage at their relentless elitism. The academy was a proving ground for the elite, where only the strong and stylish survived, and Clara, with her thrift store wardrobe, was already their punching bag. Coach Marcus Wolf, an ex-national champion with a chiseled jaw and an ego to match, watched her from the sidelines, his laughter a blade aimed at her back. To them, she was a misfit, a nobody who'd wandered into their sacred space, and they were determined to break her before she even tied her belt. On her first day, the whispers turned into a chorus of cruelty. A clique of students, their GIs embroidered with sponsor logos, gathered near the water cooler, their voices loud enough for Clara to hear as she stretched. "Look at grappling grandma over there," one sneered, a wiry purple belt with a man bun. "What's she doing here? Did yoga grandma get lost on her way to the community center? That t-shirt looks like it's been through a lawnmower." The others laughed, their eyes raking over Clara's outfit, her sneakers a particular point of scorn. A female student, her nails painted blood red, grabbed a water bottle and accidentally sprayed it onto Clara's shirt, the liquid soaking through the faded fabric. "Oh, my bad," she cooed, her voice dripping with malice. "That ratty shirt of yours might be better off wiping down the dojo floor, lady. Maybe you should stick to cleaning instead of embarrassing yourself here." The room erupted in chuckles, phones discreetly raised to capture Clara's reaction, but she merely wiped the water from her face, her expression unreadable, her silence a wall that only fueled their arrogance. In the locker room, as Clara changed into the moldy loner GI, a female purple belt, her hair braided tightly, cornered her against the benches, her voice a venomous hiss that carried to the others. "You really think you belong here, don't you, barista? Stinking up our dojo with your thrift store rags and your pathetic stretches," she spat, snatching Clara's gym bag and dumping its contents onto the floor. "What's this, a water bottle from the dollar store? No wonder you're a joke. Nobody like you could ever afford to train with us. Go back to flipping burgers or whatever hole you crawled out of." The other women laughed, kicking Clara's scattered belongings, their sneakers leaving smudges on her spare shirt. Clara knelt to gather her things, her movements deliberate, her eyes unyielding as the locker room became a stage for her degradation. The purple belt's words were a public crucifixion, each syllable a nail driven into Clara's pride, making the audience's fists clench at the vicious personal attack. Coach Marcus Wolf made it his mission to humiliate her. During warm-ups, he singled Clara out, his voice booming across the dojo. "All right, newbie, let's see if you can keep up without tripping over those dollar store sneakers. he taunted, pairing her with a green belt who outweighed her by 30 pounds. Don't cry when he smashes your face into the mat, sweetheart. If you survive Basic 101 without snapping your neck, I'll buy the whole class pizza. The students roared, clapping as the green belt grinned, his grips rough as he drilled Clara into the ground. Her cheek pressed against the mat's grit. Marcus circled them, his laughter a whip. What's the matter, Clara? Thought you'd be a badass after one YouTube tutorial. This is real jiu-jitsu, not your knitting circle. Clara endured, her body yielding, but her eyes burning her silence a coiled spring. During a technique review, Marcus called Clara to demonstrate a basic guard pass, setting her up for failure in front of the class. All right, Grandma, let's see if you can do something besides flop like a fish. He mocked, his voice booming as he paired her with a cocky blue belt who grinned like a shark. Don't waste my time, Clara. Move like you mean it or crawl back to whatever senior center you escaped from. The blue belt swept her to the mat with unnecessary force, pinning her as the class howled their cheers, a chorus of derision. Look at her, can't even get off her back, one shouted, while Marcus leaned in, his smirk wide. This is what happens when you let charity cases on the mat. You're not learning jiu-jitsu, Clara, you're learning your place. The crowd's laughter was a blade slicing through the air, but Clara's breathing remained steady. Her eyes fixed on the ceiling, her silence a fortress against their cruelty, fueling the audience's fury at the orchestrated public shaming. The daily classes became a gauntlet of mockery. A brown belt, his GI adorned with patches, took to calling Clara the barista during drills, his voice carrying over the grunts of training. Hey barista, you here to serve us coffee or just to get your ass handed to you? He jeered, demonstrating a choke on her with unnecessary force, his elbow digging into her throat. Maybe you should stick to making lattes. This mat's no place for someone who looks like she shops at a flea market. The others joined in, tossing her gym bag across the room, its contents spilling onto the floor, her water bottle kicked into a corner. Clara retrieved her belongings without a word, her movements precise, her face a mask of stone. At a water break, a group of students surrounded Clara as she sipped from her bottle, their leader, a muscular green belt with a tribal tattoo, snatching it from her hand. What's this, Grandma? You drinking ditch water to match your outfit? He jeered, pouring the contents onto the mat as the others laughed. You don't belong here, lady. Your sneakers are an insult to this dojo, and your face is an insult to our eyes. Why don't you spare us the embarrassment and quit? Nobody wants to roll with someone who looks like they're auditioning for a homeless shelter. The group closed in their phones, recording their taunts, a relentless barrage as the water pooled at Clara's feet. She stood motionless, her bottle empty, her face impassive, but the weight of their words was a physical force, each insult a calculated strike to erase her presence. The audience's rage peaked at the brazen public theft, their hearts pounding for Clara to strike back. Public Sparring Night was their grand stage, a weekly event where the Academy's best showed off for a crowd of students, alumni, and local fight fans. Marcus, his ego inflamed by the audience, decided Clara would be the evening's entertainment. He forced her into a moldy, stained loner guy, its fabric reeking of old sweat, and tossed her onto the mat like a sacrificial lamb. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to our newest white belt, Clara, he announced, his voice dripping with sarcasm. She thinks she's learned chokes in 3 lessons, so we're pitting her against our 80-kilo blue belt beast, Tommy the Tank Larson. I bet she taps out in 5 seconds flat. The crowd roared, phones raised their flashes, a constellation of cruelty. Tommy, a hulking figure with a shaved head, cracked his knuckles, grinning as he sized up Clara's slight frame. What's this? Did the cupcake shop send their barista to fight night by mistake? He bellowed, the crowd's laughter a tidal wave. Clara stood motionless, her eyes locked on the mat, her silence louder than their taunts, her stillness a promise they were too blind to see. The insults didn't stop as Clara prepared. A female student, her GI pristine, leaned in as Clara tied the loner belt, her voice a venomous whisper. You're embarrassing yourself, Grandma. That G's been through more fights than you'll ever survive. Why don't you quit now and save us the trouble of mopping you off the mat? The others chimed in, tossing mock bets. $10, she cries. 5, she doesn't last a round. Marcus egged them on his arms, crossed, his smirk wide. Come on, Clara, show us what you've got, or are you just here to waste our time? This is a real dojo, not a charity for wannabes. The crowd's energy was electric, their anticipation of Clara's humiliation a palpable force. Clara adjusted the GI, its stench clinging to her, and stepped to the mat's center, her movements deliberate, her face betraying no fear. During a mock tournament for beginners, Marcus forced Clara to compete against a towering white belt, hyping the match as Grandma's last stand. "All right, folks, let's see if Clara can survive 10 seconds without crying for her knitting needles," he bellowed, the crowd roaring as the white belt cracked his neck, his grin predatory. "You're about to learn why this dojo's for warriors, not coffee shop rejects," he taunted, lunging at Clara as the whistle blew. The students chanted, "Tap, tap," their phones flashing their laughter a storm as the white belt slammed Clara to the mat, his weight pinning her. "This is what you get for thinking you're one of us," he hissed, twisting her arm. Marcus egged him on, shouting, "Finish her, big guy? She's got no business here." Clara's face remained calm. Her breathing controlled her silence, a defiance that went unnoticed, the audience's fury boiling over at the brutal public mismatch designed to crush her spirit. Every class was a fresh assault. During a technique session, Marcus paired Clara with a cocky green belt who treated her like a practice dummy, twisting her arm in a lock with deliberate cruelty. "Feel that, barista? That's what real jiu-jitsu feels like," he sneered, his grip tightening as the class watched their laughter a chorus. "Maybe you should stick to folding laundry. Your arms aren't built for this." Clara endured, her breathing steady, her eyes unyielding, as if cataloging every slight for a reckoning no one anticipated. The students took turns drilling her into the mat, their grips rough, their taunts relentless. "What's the matter, Grandma? Too old to keep up?" One jeered while another dumped her water bottle's contents onto her bag, the liquid soaking her spare clothes. Clara wiped the mat with a towel, her silence a fortress, her patience a blade sharpening with every insult. The dojo was their kingdom and she was their jester, but they didn't know the crown she hid. The academy's culture was a crucible of elitism, where only the flashy and ferocious thrived. Clara's plainness was an affront, her presence a challenge to their hierarchy. A purple belt, his GI adorned with sponsor patches, took to leading chants during warm-ups. "Grandma's gonna tap, Grandma's gonna tap." The others joined in their voices, a mocking rhythm as Clara ran laps, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. Marcus encouraged it, his laughter booming. "Keep up, Clara, or we'll send you back to the senior center where you belong," he shouted, tossing a medicine ball at her with enough force to stagger her. The class cheered, their phones recording her struggle, their memes spreading beyond the dojo to local fight forums. Clara caught the ball, her grip steady, her eyes burning with a fire no one noticed, her silence a ticking bomb they were too smug to hear. Sparring night loomed like a public execution, the dojo packed with spectators eager for blood. Marcus, reveling in the spotlight, made Clara the main event, his voice a carnival barker's as he hyped the mismatch. "Tonight we've got a special treat, our white belt wonder. Clara taking on Tommy the Tank Larson, the blue belt who's been smashing opponents all season," he crowed, the crowd's laughter a roar. "Let's see if she can last longer than a commercial break." Tommy strutted to the mat, his muscles flexing, his grin a promise of pain. The students shoved Clara forward, their hands rough, their taunts a chorus. "Tap out, Grandma, go back to baking cookies." Clara adjusted the moldy gi, its stench a final insult, and bowed to Tommy, her movements precise, her face a mask of calm. The crowd saw a victim, the mat saw a predator, and the clock was about to start. The tension in the dojo was suffocating the air, thick with the crowd's anticipation of Clara's defeat. Marcus stood at the mat's edge, his arms crossed, his smirk a challenge. "You're about to learn what happens when you step into a real fighter's world, sweetheart," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd's jeers. "Tommy's gonna send you back to whatever hole you crawled out of, and we'll all have a good laugh." The students chanted Tommy's name, their phones raised their flashes, a barrage of light. Clara stood opposite Tommy, her slight frame dwarfed by his bulk, her white belt, a symbol of her supposed inexperience. The crowd's energy was a living thing feeding on her apparent weakness, their laughter a blade aimed at her heart. But Clara's eyes were steady, her breathing slow, her silence a storm gathering strength invisible to the fools who thought they'd already won. The referee, a grizzled black belt, raised his hand, his voice cutting through the noise. "Start!" The crowd surged forward, their cheers a tidal wave as Tommy lunged, his hands reaching for Clara's collar. 14 seconds. That's all it took. Clara baited him with a textbook cross-collar grip, her fingers precise, her stance unshakable. She feinted a guard pull, drawing Tommy's weight forward, then switched to a loop, choke her elbow slamming into his carotid artery with surgical force. The crowd's cheers choked into silence as Tommy's eyes rolled back, his body slumping to the mat unconscious before he could tap. The dojo went dead silent, the phones dropping, the flashes fading, the air heavy with shock. Clara rose, her breathing steady, her face unreadable, as if she'd merely swatted a fly. The silence was deafening, the crowd frozen, their eyes locked on Clara as she calmly stripped off the white belt, letting it fall to the mat like a discarded lie. She reached into her tattered gym bag and pulled out a pristine black belt, its gold embroidery glinting under the dojo's lights. Clara Wynn, IBJJF certified black belt. The crowd gasped their whispers, a tide of disbelief, as she tied it around her waist, her movements deliberate, her smile soft but razor sharp. "Yeah, I learned chokes, but that was 10 years ago," she said, her voice quiet but resonant, each word a blade. "Former Pan American Jiu-Jitsu women's champion. I just came to see how embarrassingly bad your class really was." The room recoiled, Marcus's jaw dropping, his bravado shattered. As Clara tied her black belt, she faced the crowd, her voice a quiet thunder that silenced their whispers. "Your technique is sloppy, your egos are bloated, and your dojo is a disgrace to jiu-jitsu," she said, her eyes sweeping the room, each word a hammer striking their pride. She stepped to a practice dummy, executing a flawless guillotine choke in one fluid motion, her movements a blur of precision that left the students gaping. This is what a real choke looks like, not the playground bullying you call training. The crowd's phones, once mocking, now recorded her mastery, their flashes a tribute to her skill. Marcus's face drained of color, his championship credentials mocked by her effortless display. The referee whispered to a student, "She's a legend," his words spreading like wildfire. Clara's talent was a terror, her black belt, a blade that carved through their arrogance, the audience screaming with delight as the dojo's elite cowered before her prowess. Clara turned to Marcus, her gaze ice-cold, her voice a verdict. "You call this a dojo? I've seen better technique in a strip mall fitness class," she said, her words slicing through the silence. "You're not a coach, you're a bully with a whistle, and your students are just parrots of your arrogance. I could have tapped every one of them blindfolded." Marcus stammered, his face red, but Clara's presence commanded the room, her black belt a crown that silenced his protests. The crowd parted as she stepped off the mat, their eyes averted, their confidence crushed under the weight of her revelation. Clara turned to the purple belt who'd led the grandma chants, her gaze a laser that pinned him to the wall. "You thought your chants made you tough," she said, her voice low but resonant, each word a verdict. "Step up, hotshot. Let's see if you can last 10 seconds against me." The crowd held its breath as he hesitated, then shuffled to the mat, his bravado crumbling under her stare. Clara dispatched him with a swift armbar, her technique so precise he tapped before hitting the ground, his yelp echoing in the silent dojo. The students gasped, their leader humbled in front of their eyes, his patches meaningless against her skill. The phones captured his defeat, the video destined to haunt him in every gym. Clara's talent was a weapon, her mastery, a terror that left the antagonist's hierarchy in ruins, the audience roaring with satisfaction as their taunts turned to dust. The students stood frozen, their phones useless, their memes irrelevant. A female student, the one who'd sprayed water on Clara's shirt, dropped her bottle, her face pale as she realized the woman she'd mocked was a legend. "You thought you could break me with your high school mean girl tactics?" Clara said, her voice low but piercing, her eyes locking on the student. "I've faced world champions who hit harder than your words, and I choked them out too." The student shrank back, her bravado gone, her status in the dojo nullified. Before leaving, Clara addressed the female student who dumped her bag in the locker room, her voice a chilling calm that froze the room. "You thought you could break me with your petty games," she said, stepping closer, her black belt glinting. "Watch this." She grabbed a nearby student, demonstrating a seamless triangle choke, her legs locking with lethal precision, the volunteer tapping frantically as the crowd gasped. "That's what I could have done to you any day, any time," Clara said, releasing her partner and fixing the student with a stare that stripped her bare. The woman's face collapsed, her status obliterated, her cruelty exposed as futile against Clara's skill. The press present for sparring night scribbled furiously, their headlines already crowning Clara a master. Her talent was a nightmare for the antagonists, a public spectacle that left them trembling, the audience's satisfaction soaring as justice was served on the mat. Marcus tried to salvage his pride, stepping forward with a forced laugh. All right, let's not get carried away," he said, his voice trembling. "Good move, Clara, but don't think this makes you—" Clara cut him off, her voice a guillotine. "Save it, Marcus. Your academy's a joke and your teaching's an embarrassment. I came here to test your students and they failed because you failed them." She gestured to the mat where Tommy still lay, groggy and defeated. 14 seconds. That's what your beast lasted against a grandma. Maybe you should take up yoga. It'd do wonders for your ego. The crowd gasped some stifling laughs as Marcus's face burned. His authority shattered in front of his own students. As Clara slung her gym bag over her shoulder, she paused at the dojo's trophy case, its glass reflecting her black belt's gold embroidery. "These trophies mean nothing when your students can't even tie a proper knot," she said, her voice carrying to the crowd who hung on her every word. She executed a rapid sequence of sweeps and submissions on a volunteer, each move a masterclass that left the students awestruck, their phones now documenting a legend. "I trained with Gracie's best, you're not even in their shadow," she added her words, a death knell for the Academy's pride. Marcus's trophies, once his glory became relics of his failure, his students' faces pale as they realized their coach was a fraud. The press captured every second, their reports spreading Clara's dominance across Texas. Her talent was a terror, her skill, a public execution of the dojo's ego, the audience cheering as the antagonist's legacy crumbled. The fallout was immediate. Clara walked out, her black belt tied tight, her gym bag slung over her shoulder, leaving the dojo in stunned silence. By morning, Austin's fight community was ablaze with the story, the video of her 14-second choke spreading across social media, hashtags like #GhostOfTheMat trending locally. Outside the dojo, as Clara stepped into the Austin night, a group of local fighters drawn by the viral video waited to pay respects, their eyes wide with awe. "You're the ghost of the mat," one said, offering a bow, but Clara waved it off, her voice steady. "I don't need your bows. I need you to train harder, respect better, and never let a dojo become a bully's playground again." She demonstrated a quick wrist lock on a volunteer, her movement so fluid it seemed effortless, the fighters gasping at her precision. The press trailing her broadcast the moment, framing her as Jiu-Jitsu's new moral compass. Marcus and his students, watching from the dojo's windows, saw their world shift, their elitism buried by Clara's skill. Her talent was a beacon, her public lesson a terror that rewrote Austin's fight scene, the audience's hearts pounding with pride as the antagonist's shame went global. The Academy's reputation tanked, its students mocked in other dojos, their elite status a punchline. Marcus's classes emptied, his arrogance exposed as a liability, his name whispered as the coach who'd underestimated a legend. The female student who'd sprayed water quit, her Instagram flooded with comments calling her out. Clara's name echoed in every gym, her plainness now a myth, her black belt a legend. Clara didn't return to the Academy. She didn't need to. Her point was made, her power undeniable. The press dug into her past, uncovering her 5 years undercover after retiring from competition, her Pan-American titles, her training in dojos across Brazil and Japan. They called her the Ghost of the Mat, a title that stuck her plain t-shirt and sneakers, now symbols of her untouchable skill. Other academies sent her invitations begging her to teach, but she declined, her silence as powerful as her chokes. The students who'd mocked her were left to grapple with their shame. Their phones now silent, their memes deleted. Clara's victory wasn't just a fight, it was a lesson etched into Austin's fight scene, a reminder that the plainest fighter could be the deadliest. The dojo's culture of elitism crumbled. New students demanded better coaching, their respect for Marcus gone, their eyes on the mat where Clara had redefined power. The Academy's trophies, once symbols of glory, now mocked its failure, the memory of Clara's choke a shadow over every class. Marcus tried to spin the story, claiming he'd known Clara's skill, but no one bought it, his lies drowned out by the viral video. The referee, now a local hero for his nod to Clara, spoke of her in interviews, calling her a master who'd humbled them all. Clara's legacy was ironclad, her black belt a beacon for every underdog who'd been laughed off the mat. In the weeks that followed, Clara's name became a mantra in Austin's dojos, her story a cautionary tale for every arrogant fighter. The students who'd chanted grandma were shunned, their reputations tarnished, their belts meaningless in the face of her skill. The Academy's enrollment plummeted, its sponsors pulling out its banners, gathering dust. Clara, meanwhile, was spotted training alone in a park, her black belt tied loose, her movements a dance of precision and power. She didn't need their mats, their GIs, or their approval. She'd come to test them, and they'd failed, their arrogance choked out in 14 seconds. The ghost of the mat had no need for their world, she'd already conquered it. She didn't scream, she didn't beg. She made them tap to their own arrogance and left them gasping for air on the cold dojo mats. Like, share, and comment your favorite cold-blooded comeback story. And subscribe for more tales where the plain woman tears down the world they tried to keep her out of.